Hello and welcome to everyone accompanying us in the newest episode of Pier-to-Pier Podcast, where we explore the people who reside within these virtual worlds and the stories and knowledge that they carry. Tonight with me, I have somebody with a lot of experience in several different fields, somebody that I feel might be quite interesting for some, a student in the branch of health and psychology. Tonight with me at the Pier, I have Jinxter. So, Jinxter, welcome to the Pier.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's begin with a quick introduction about who you are. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, well, I'm Jinxter. I am 51. That's my given age. I don't have a true date of birth. I was adopted, and the nurses unfortunately forgot to write down the day I was born, so that's the estimate day they gave me. Used computers for would be probably over 45 years now. And I studied psychology and psychiatry and science and graduated through psychology. Hoped to have a degree in psychiatry, but unfortunately was in a very bad car accident. And so because of the injuries sustained, I couldn't even though I graduated, I couldn't actually fulfill that job because of the brain injury. And so now I actually am a Microsoft business partner and just building computers and assisting people and giving them training and guidance in computers.
Okay. So let's begin at the beginning. You studied psychology and neuropsychology. What was the driving factor that made you take that choice?
Well, originally I was just going to study science and psychology as a subtopic. Wanted to go into biotechnology. And after the first year of doing psychology, I was just transfixed by how interesting it was. And then it was from first year, after finishing my 4 subjects in the first year, I decided, psychiatry is my career. This is just titillating how interesting it was. And I just followed it from there. The only negative thing, granted, was in second year when they told everybody, all of us, that we had to get a credit in statistics. And myself, I hated math. I was not amazing at math at high school and such because I just didn't really study it. And so when they told us we had to get a credit in statistics for psychiatry to graduate, I just thought, well, that'll be a challenge. But I thought I'll keep going and try it anyway.
You get anything good, even the career path. Like my career path was filmmaking, and we still had to do math. We still had to do some other things that maybe we're not too good, but at the same time, it just helps us build character, helps us
very much
learn more things. Because sometimes that one thing that you want, I mean, there are also like other things associated with it. So it's a. But you passed. You passed statistics. You did good, right?
Eventually I did.
Eventually.
I failed the first time,
But you did.
Then I passed it well. I passed it well on the second time. So,
it's actually quite interesting having somebody. You're probably the first person that I had here who actually studied in the field of. I like to say medicine, but I don't think psychology is it's medicine. It's more health.
It actually is classed as a medical health profession. So statistical and in terms of career paths, it is actually in the medical health industry in terms of the choice of career. Medically, psychology. The primary difference between psychology and psychiatry is psychiatry, you are licensed to prescribe medicine through a medical degree, through a doctorate. And so psychology, you just have a postgrad in psychology. You cannot prescribe medicine. You can refer it to a doctor to prescribe the medicine, to authorize it. That's the major difference that a lot of people don't know. In most countries, it is slightly different in some countries, but not dramatically.
All right.
And the bizarre thing is, as an aside, it's the one career path that everybody that I know of was just bewildered that I decided to go into psychiatry was because I was always very artistic, and everybody thought I would go into either computers or art or graphic design because I was always an artist. And so that's just a little conundrum that to add to convey to your listeners that your career path can change just on a dime without you even realizing. So even though to your listeners, if you are aiming for a certain career path in the future, don't be assured that that's where you will be, because things can happen that unbeknownst to you, you just change for no reason at all. You think, oh, I'm being pulled in this direction now. This will be just amazing. I'll just follow that path. So that's what I hope I can assist and guide your listeners to just follow the path that they feel at that time is the correct way for them to go.
That's actually a really good piece of advice.
Thank you.
See, I really want somebody that worked in the branch of health, because I believe that VR and even social VR is still till this day a very interesting subject, interesting topic, but at the same time one that isn't studied very much. You see all of these talks about how VR is making people feel more isolated rather than social. I mean, there are talks that yes, there is social VR, yes, it is helping people, but usually there aren't like many studies. People don't really talk about it much. And me as a user for the last 8 years, I believe that VR can have some very positive applications in general. So I wanted to ask somebody that worked in the field, like VR, like social VR, like what's your opinion with what you know about social VR?
Well, that's let's just say that's a myriad of different responses, because depending on the software that you're using, you'll encounter a total mixture and variety of different people. The only generalized notion that I can say for most VR applications, whether VR chat or chill out or other communication social programs like VR chat, is that it is a form of escapism for most people, and not in light of being escapism to actually try and be somebody that they are not. It's just that for somebody to feel as though they're not inhibited by society or their friends or their group or where they live. And so that's something that I feel is actually good about VR in terms of its social aspect. The only negative thing with any VR social communicative program is the age range, because a lot of people in a lot of programs, such as VR Chat or Chill Out, are children. And in my mind, and many others as well, I shouldn't speak for others because it's generalizing, but children should not, in my mind, be playing VR Chat and other programs such as that, because what they can experience in VR Chat can socially, psychologically alter their perception of reality, because, again, it's a broad sweeping generalization to say this about all children, because it's not true, but for children in terms of their development, what they're experienced to in VR Chat and other social programs is not what society actually is out of VR. And so that can actually sway their perception of reality and their behavior. So that's why as VR Chat, you have to be 13 to be able to play VR Chat, technically, through the TOS. But 13, I still think, is very young for the social development that they are exposed to.
So social VR should be used as a complement for those that have already grown into social aspect, into socializing.
That's right. It should be an introduction into social
not as a
communication.
tool, not as a tool to begin, more as a tool
That's
that once you're more established, you can use that
Yes.
as a complement, not a substitute.
That's right. Because introducing somebody to the social plethora of responses that you can get in VR chat is too abundant for a child's mind to actually try and process. Again, it may sound arrogant of me saying that, and assuming that all children are the same, but they're not, because they're not, obviously. But generally speaking, what happens in VR chat in certain areas or certain worlds or at certain times is just far too complex for a child to actually just understand, because they'll actually just go by the simple notion of hearing something and just interpreting it and going, okay, that's what they mean. Okay, cool. And then just laugh and shrug it away, put over their shoulder. But when they think about it, in retrospect, when they leave VR chat, they may actually then have a conundrum where they're conflicted in what they should believe and what they should think. And so that's why I don't think VR chat is an introductory mechanism for people. It should be used once they are already familiar with the social aspect of VR in other programs. Or
That's something that happens.
Are actually developed more in life, in the real life.
You see that. I mean, not only in VR, but we also, I mean, everybody sees that a lot nowadays with social media. You see a lot of people spending a lot of time on their phones, browsing through Instagram, X, Blue Sky, just stuck on their phone. And how can spending time only in VR and social media without socializing in real life, spending most of your time on phones, like how can that affect a child in its early age?
Oh, dramatically. Because what they're exposed to in VR is not the real world. As I said, a lot of people, again, it's a broad sweeping generalization saying this, but a lot of people use, as I said, VR chat as a form of escapism, where they don't feel as though they're inhibited by anything that they are in real life. And so because of that, people act differently. Not everybody, of course, but a lot of people do just act differently because they feel freer. And that people actually, a good example is that a lot of people actually see other people as just fake avatars. It's actually just a computer generated person. It's not a real person. And so they're not actually seeing that person. They're seeing a creation of who they actually want to be, what avatar they're showing. And so because of that, they don't feel as though it's a real person, that they can say anything, that it's not going to affect them psychologically, emotionally, or mentally in any way. And so because of that, people feel as though they're freer to say things, and have no inhibition about people's emotions. So that's what I think is a problem with VR. If people use this as a form of socialization, moreover than real life, because real life, you have the environment all around you, the actual location that you're in, the cities, the state, the country, no matter where you are, each area in the world is different. And as soon as you come to VR, you're in a fictional creation that somebody has made. And because of that, you do not know how to act, because you're not affected by your environment, because you're in a fictional creation. And so that's the problem. If people use VR chat too much, in my mind, that's a bad thing, because they lose their grasp on how to actually act in real life, because they don't feel inhibited once they actually remove the headset on certain things.
So we established that it can be bad for children or teenagers, pretty much people in the development years. But what
Yes.
about in for people who are much mature? Could this be a tool that
Oh, that's
could
fine.
help
Very
people?
much.
That could be like, what's your opinion about social VR in terms of the betterment for people? Like, can it provide good, especially for maybe people who might suffer from a slight bit of social anxiety or other sort of
Yes.
situations?
That's the benefit. That's the good thing for people who are more mature. Even teenagers, of course, because there are, of course, some teenagers that are socially and mentally more mature than others. And for those of you who are listening that may be more mature and have a grasp of who they are and what want to be in the future on their path that they want to go on, VR is something that I feel would benefit them because they can actually meet other people that may have gone on their similar path to what they want to ascribe to. And they can be of assistance. They can say, oh, this is what happened to me. It may not happen to you in the same manner, but it still may happen. So this is something that should be prepared for. And so in that light, I think VR chat and other VR programs are very beneficial. You can actually learn to feel less inhibited and convey yourself a lot more to others.
Okay, so it can be a tool for good. For example, your experience, like what got you into VR in the first place? Everybody has a story of how we got ourselves in here. What's your story?
Oh God. oh, this is an explosion of a VR chat initiation. My story. I've always been a computer hardware person. I've always just wanted to try new things and experience new hardware and things. And then when I saw the Oculus, the Rift, I went, oh, wow, it can't be as good as what they're conveying it's going to be. And so when maybe a month after it was released, even that, I went, okay, this is just too ridiculous. I have to have one just to experience this. And then when I got it, I just went, whoa, okay. This is far more just scintillating and just exhilarating than I could ever have imagined. I did not think that virtual reality was this immersive. And then as the years progressed, I just kept on buying different headsets, more headsets, and so on and so on, just to actually continue the evolution with the technology as it evolved as well. And in a way, felt as though I was growing with the advancement of VR technology because I was feeling more immersed as the technology got better. And now with certain headsets, it is though you're just actually looking at your monitor. It's so immersive. You don't feel as though you actually have a headset on. Like my headset is so light, I feel as though I've just got like somebody's just patting me on the head. It's so light, you can't feel anything on your head.
You have a pair of glasses.
Yeah, it's like I just got to have a pair of sunglasses on. Yeah. So that's why it's just bizarre now because even though I know it's not real, it just feels as though like we're sitting down in the lounge room just having a talk, just communicating with each other. And it's so, albeit bizarre, but yet still just amazing.
I mean, yes, the advancements in VR technology have been. I mean, VR technology, consumer VR, was pretty much. It was around 2014 to 2015 when the first Oculus developer kit was being unveiled, and people were using it for simple experiences. And now we have virtual worlds with 6 degrees of freedom and motion trackers for the whole body. It's amazing. And since we actually had a lot of experience with technology, I'd like to ask you, where can this technology, like, what are the limits of such a technology, both in general and, for example, in the field of health?
Oh, well, in terms of the field of health, I feel as though I've spoken to a lot of people over the last 9.5 years in VR that have suffer from now or have in the past such things as PTSS or PTSD originally, as it was titled, or anxiety and depression. And because of that, I've said to them, VR is something that will assist in depression, anxiety, and things such as that, because you can actually, when you're feeling down, you can actually put your headset on, go and actually just see if your friends are online that you've met and just talk to them and actually just feel as though you can actually escape. Because if you're actually thinking about something else as a form of replacement of that feeling of anxiety or pain or loss, if it's actually replaced with a new feeling, then your mind will actually just be transfixed on something new. And so you'll be teleported out of that feeling of depression or anxiety, even though only for maybe an hour or two. But that's actually something that can assist a great amount of people, even if it's only for a short amount of time. And that I feel is actually beneficial for VR.
A lot of people, especially people that work in the press, have said things in a negative light about VR. Usually, the technology is mirrored, or pretty much it's said in the same sentence as antisocial, hermit people who don't like to go outside. It's pretty much always given a negative light, and pretty much always it's called a tool that inhibits creativity, productivity, and it's just deemed as a bad tool, something that people usually use it for escapism, but in the negative way. If you could say something to all of those people, especially people like in the branches of in health, that it usually VR is villainized. It's usually called a bad thing. Like, if from your perspective, if you could say something regarding to that, even if it's to especially other professionals in the area, what would you say about those generalized opinions about VR and social VR?
Right. Well, I would say that for people who actually condemn the facet of VR for making people limited anyway, or hermits, as you said, that of course does happen for a spectrum of people, but that is on the spectrum. Very few people will actually act that way and become or be that way. For the majority of the cases that I've experienced in 9.5 years, VR chat is something that can assist in the evolution of somebody's personality, their mannerisms, and in generally speaking, how they behave towards others. Because when you are even a teenager, when you are a teenager or an adult, and you have a social grounding that you feel good in yourself already, and you actually befriend people in VR who may be similar or have similar likes, dislikes, etc., then the friendship that you will form is something that will actually allow you to grow emotionally and mentally, because the ability to learn in VR is so much more dramatically like accelerative, meaning that you can learn so much more faster in VR than you can by just sitting down and just reading a textbook. Because you can meet somebody that has experienced exactly what you actually want to ascend to in the future. And they can tell you what has happened to them, how they actually ascribed to it themselves, and what pitfalls that they may have encountered. And because of that, that will assist that person in their growth. And in light of that, I think that is something that is beneficial, because VR chat can then therefore help the person grow much more than just going to the mall with their friends or something. And if they're just doing that every 2, 3, 4 days, there's nothing wrong with that. But if they get on VR Instead, maybe every 2 or 3 days a week, that's something that they can actually then meet their new friends, similar, of course, to their friends in real life, physical friends, and then they can actually just be with them, even though not physically, they're then with them socially and intellectually, and they will still grow just as much, if not even maybe more, than what they are with their friends just hanging out, to coin a phrase, at the mall.
Have you experienced this? Are there like any really good friendships that you have forged in here? Like people who you call your brothers in arms?
Yeah, oh, very much so. Like my best friend, unfortunately, he left VRChat a few years ago because, well, he was sued by Bungie because of copyright fraud. Well, doing avatars and such, like Kratos, which I shouldn't be in Kratos, I apologize. Because I spoke to my lawyer, and you can't legally have a commercial avatar. You have to have the written permission of the avatar's creator from within the company. Otherwise, it's breaking about 4 laws, international laws, not just in my country. And so he was one of the nicest people I have met in my entire life. And that's coming from somebody who studies psychology, psychiatry, and just a myriad of different science subjects at university. For me to say that even makes me think in the past I would never have said something like that, because I could never meet somebody that I haven't physically met to sit down and analyze them unconsciously, not sit down and like try and psychoanalyze them like a close friend, to understand their real mannerisms and their behavior. But when you actually meet people in VR, when you become close friends with them and you are with them for a long time, no matter what people may say, you do understand who they are. You will understand their real personality and their likes, their dislikes down to the core, like you would in real life. Not exactly the same, but very, very similar. But that's when you actually do become good, close friends with people in VR, because it can happen. It's not just a simple form of escapism to just jump in and become somebody else, which does happen. There's a massive spectrum of young children that do that because they feel as though VR chat is just a toy. But in essence, even though it is a toy, to coin a phrase, VR chat, in my mind, is a wonderful form of social evolution for the personality and the growth.
So the bonds one makes in the virtual world are just as strong as ones made in the real world.
They can be. But when it comes to emotional bonds in terms of love, certainly not. That's one thing I myself just don't agree with, that you cannot form social love in terms of true emotional love in forms of relationships, as in like become a partner with somebody that you just meet in VR in another country or even in the same country. If you don't meet them, if you just meet them for even a year or two, just on VR, just talking to them every night even, you may actually feel a form of love towards them, of companionship, but it's not the same as full physical, emotional love that you would have with somebody in real life, where you actually have that physical bond as well as emotional. So that's something that I don't feel that people should look at VR chat to try and find. If they're looking for love, that's something that does not exist in VR chat in terms of emotional love for a partnership. Unless you do actually go and meet them in real life as well as being in VR chat.
So yeah, so you follow it up outside in the real world. Like you meet
Very
somebody,
much, yeah.
you become close, and the next thing, hey, let's meet up.
If it's just a virtual social relationship, then that's not a true emotional relationship in terms of love, as in partnership. For a commitment to have like marriage or just to be committed to that person, that is not an emotional relationship. You actually have to physically, in my mind, from my experience and my studies, and of life studies, of course, you actually have to have that physical contact with that person to actually have that bond. Otherwise, it's just, again, it's a virtual bond. It's a fictional creation that you're actually making that you feel as though is just as good as a physical bond, but technically, in my perception, is not the same for relationships.
Wow. Wow.
Unless you do meet
that's
the person as well.
that's actually quite enlightening. A lot of people actually do develop relationships. Like
I
love
do. I know
relationships in VR.
quite a few people that actually feel as though they are in love and that they've never had the connection that they've had with these certain people. But I say to them, yes, just be cautious, because the love that you feel isn't the same as love that you may have with like a best friend that you actually will fall in love with in real life, as an example. That's because the connection that you have physically in the real world is different than what you're having in the virtual world. Even though you feel the emotions may be so significant that the individual would feel as though it's the same, it still isn't until you actually meet that person, because people have their hidden mannerisms and their little social constructs in their belief systems that will come out when you actually are with somebody. You can actually detect like people's facial expressions, as you would know, when you're talking to friends, when they are not impressed with something. When you say, oh, yes, do you want to come and do this? Because I did this yesterday and it'll be so amazing. It'll be really cool. You will know they will give you a facial expression before they respond. You don't get that in VR. So you might just get a response like, yeah, okay, sure, that'll be cool. Whereas they're really thinking,
I mean,
not really
VR,
into that.
VR technically is heading toward that general direction. We are seeing a lot of, VR advancements nowadays, aside from just better headsets and better resolutions, now also go for finger tracking. It also goes for eye tracking, body tracking, and even face tracking.
Yeah, the face tracking
even mouth tracking, like lips, cheeks. Like one would think, like what would you need something like that? Like the only reason such a technology like right now is like that sort of technology is being implemented is for social VR. There is no gamification out of emoting or eye tracking. Eye tracking, maybe you get some benefit with foveated rendering, which is rendering the image just where your eyes are looking. But aside from that, body tracking, facial tracking, finger tracking, it's very much just to try to replicate many of like human emotion and human like characteristics and details that are a part of that social facet.
Facial expressions, that's the only negative thing. That's why I say to people, with the facial expressions, you're not going to get their minimal facial movement. You're only going to get dramatic facial movements that is conveyed in their avatar through how they have designed their avatar. It won't give you the simple little mannerisms of like a little smirk or a little grin of their lip just slightly tilting and their eye going like rolling back in their head at the same time. It may actually do a partial similar response to what they're doing in real life, but it will never give the same minimalistic responses that you can get in real life. So it will in the far future, but VR currently for the consumer is not at that point where you will get the true full facial tracking, as in like per half a centimeter or less mouth movement or cheek movement for a facial movement. It's only usually larger facial mannerisms that actually are detected and then conveyed through the avatar, because the avatar has to be actually made to actually respond to that exact area of the face.
I mean, we're far away from such a point, like all of those small, tiny details that you're talking about, but maybe eventually, a couple of years, maybe decades, but I believe that we could get that. We could get that. Because a lot of attention, like VR began over 10 years ago, and it was fairly simple. It was, I don't remember the original resolution of the developer kit one for the Oculus, but it was something like 640 by 480, something very pixelated. It was more of
It
a
was.
gimmick rather than a full-on tested device. And now it has evolved to the point that many different companies have throw their hat in the ring. And even till this day, there's still new headsets coming out trying to innovate even further. So maybe if social VR keeps being good, it keeps being a thing, because right now the VR market, the VR social market, is a bit in a decline. We had the situation with Meta Horizons now, or the closure of Rec Room. I mean, VR chat might be here to stay, because I do believe it's one of the most active ones, and and one of the where the most investment and actual money is being moved around, because of its ability, because it's built around Unity. So anything you can build in Unity, you can bring in here, characters, worlds, etc., etc. But maybe, I mean, do you think, in your honest vision, like VR, like social VR, is it going in a good direction, or where can we take this? Like, what would be the next big step, in your opinion, for social VR?
I think the next big step will be, I'll just say, more flexibility in interactions, because VR chat, as I said, is to be simplistic, like an instigator of and creator of the facet of VR, because a lot of people have never heard of VR until they hear about people getting on VR chat. So that's the crux of how they learn about VR, because people tell them about VR chat and how unique it is. And other programs, again, like Chill Out and things as well, but VR chat more so, because of its user base. But in terms of social development of VR in the future, I think that because of the hardware development in the future, such as Sony, a friend works for Sony, how they're continuing with their VR on the next PlayStation console, which is computer hybrid PC. They will have full VR that will be full body tracking, everything. And because of that, that's going to actually just create an influx of millions more people using VR, or learn about VR, even though not using it, they just learn about it. And so that will actually be a catalyst that will actually allow VR to actually snowball and keep growing and growing faster and faster. And that's what I think is good, because a lot of other companies, since they are joining the VR bandwagon, to coin a phrase, and that's something that will allow VR chat and VR in general to grow, because other companies are seeing that it's jumping in its user base and people are actually starting to become more involved. And I feel that as the technology keeps getting better, and other companies join the hardware onslaught, that it's just the tip of the iceberg, what we're seeing now. Things are going to start going gangbusters, to use a generalization and a bizarre word, but by the end of this year, because Meta bringing their Quest 4, their Meta Quest 4, they're rushing that with full face tracking, eye tracking, everything they're aiming at, even though Steam Frame being delayed, and their low amount of product like on sale when they do it, 500,000, that'll be a bit of a conundrum for people waiting for a Steam Frame. It's going to be amazing, because I know at least 3 other headsets that are coming out, including the Meta headset this year. And that's just 3 that are going to change everything. And with all their new technology that they're bringing, that's just what has been announced. And so next year and the following year, there'll be even more newer technology that's going to step up from what's coming up this year. So I think VR is about to actually change dramatically this year onwards.
So you think that aside from what everybody's saying that VR is dead, you actually believe that VR is here to stay?
No. I think VR is here to stay. The problem with VR currently, one of the problems, in my mind, again, everybody has their own opinions, because that's how we change, by differing opinions. There's too few outlets in VR to experience, too fewer like programs. There's not enough software for VR users to actually experience, to grow socially, that is. Of course, there's VR games and such, but in terms of VR's growth, we want people to get VR not just to play games. We want people to actually, who get VR, learn that there's things such as VR chat and other social things in VR that you can do that can actually assist you in your life in terms of growth, or just the simple structure of learning. And with the new headsets and such, as I said, new hardware that's being developed, other companies are now going to start seeing that and go, okay, I'll actually make some software. We'll make some software. They'll actually enhance this software or make things different. And again, that may be what's called wishful thinking, but I feel as though, because I know some companies, like I'm a Microsoft business partner, and so I know some companies that are actually looking into VR for future development for gaming and social constructs.
So pretty much develop VR more than just a game platform into a workflow platform, something that could be used for business, because I know people that tend to use VR, for example, for coding, for multiple screen setup, pretty much try to use it as a way to create something that is very much difficult or impossible to the reality, because that's the magic of VR. You can pretty much do whatever you can think of, whatever sort of concept. If you can think it, you could probably develop it.
That's right. And with the advancement of technology, with all the new multitude of operating systems coming out, like with Linux now, how it will run through Proton and through other translations layers coming out through the Ubuntu have helped actually develop. You're now going to have, with Proton and the new translation layer that Ubuntu is actually assisted in, you'll have 99% of Windows applications and even back to DOS games and applications will run under Linux. And then as that becomes easy to use for a lot of people, just through the GUI base, that's going to change everything, because headsets, most headsets, not all, most headsets work not just under Windows now, they'll work under other operating systems. And so since other operating systems are also now on the bandwagon in terms of VR, things will start changing, because software will actually develop more so in the future than what it has now, because of the limitations that Windows has had on the stranglehold.
Right. Windows it's a mess. Windows has more issues than solutions.
That's unfortunately, the thing. That's why Windows now, because of the Privacy Act, which is illegal for Microsoft to have done what they have done in most countries, even in America. Friend's a lawyer, both America and my country, that for Microsoft to have been key logging things that you've been typing on your keyboard and taking screenshots, that's actually against the Privacy Act. It's illegal. Even though you do agree to Microsoft's terms and conditions when you install the software, it still isn't legal, even if you agree to the installation of the operating system. So they're actually backtracking what they're doing now and altering Windows 11. But it's hurt, unfortunately, Microsoft too much already, because China has removed Windows from all commercial government computer systems over the next year. It's being removed over the next year. They're never going to Windows 11, and they're going to other operating systems. It's an independent version of Linux in all Chinese corporate and government institutions. And other companies, such in France, I was told as well, and other parts of Europe have taken Microsoft to court over the Privacy Act. So it's going to be a very unique next few years since Windows 12 has been, in a way, cancelled. And it's now just Windows 26 H2, which is what the update was in February. So
Interesting. I mean, we'll just have to see and wait what happens with all of these lawsuits.
very much so. Yes, yes.
But no, it's still very much interesting. You know, we're almost running out of time, so I'm just gonna ask you one final question for our beautiful audience, for whoever is watching this. Is there something that you would like to say to them about the world of VR, social VR, to those that are already in VR, but at the same time to those that are new to the whole thing, who are just looking from the inside out?
Okay.
From the outside in, from the inside out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. For those of you that are watching and listening that don't have VR, that are just unsure about it because of things such as cost or just whether it's going to be beneficial in any way, I'd just like to say that there are headsets available that are only a few $100s that you'll still be able to experience VR chat and other VR programs that will allow you to actually just begin your journey. You don't need to jump into expensive headsets and such to experience VR. You can just jump in for, say, $200-300 and experience what VR chat and the VR is actually about. And I feel as though for a lot of people, it would be beneficial because it will allow you to actually grow both socially and intellectually. And for those of you that have VR already, from my knowledge of what people in game companies and other hardware companies as well have told me, just keep going in VR because things will be introduced this year and next year that we're going are and will enhance the experience even more and allow you to get even more benefit and pleasure out of what you already are achieving in VR right now.
Again, Jinxter, thank you very much for being with us here tonight. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. And to everyone watching the podcast, I'd like to thank everyone for sticking around to today's episode of Pier-to-Pier Podcast, where we explore the people who reside within these virtual worlds and the stories and knowledge that they carry. May you have a wonderful rest of your day.